Welcome, my friends, to another episode of Facts Me, where we educate, not fabricate. I am your host, Stephen Lancaster, the everyday working class man with a voice built on fact, reason, and good old-fashioned common sense. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a man who's been called everything from a political prodigy to the future of the Democratic Party. And let me tell you, my friends, that it doesn't take much to be the future of the Democratic Party. But I like to call him something different. I call him the white man's Kamala Harris. That's right. Today we're talking about Gavin Newsom, who has big dreams, my friends, and aspirations of becoming the next president of the United States. Now, I know that's a bold statement right out of the gate, but if you stay with me, we're going to go line by line, fact by fact, and reveal exactly why that title fits like a glove. Gavin Newsom, the white man's Kamala Harris. Gavin is a prime example of how Democrat and liberal voters really don't care about facts, results, or empty promises. Democrats and liberals tend to vote based on color, charisma, and whoever promises to hate anything that is good in this country. One might say that is just an opinion, but repetition breeds predictability, my friends, and that's what we have seen for quite some time with the Democrat Party. Neither Kamala or Gavin have lifted a finger to earn their notoriety or positions. As we all know, Kamala slept her way to the top because, as we have all seen time and time again, intelligence isn't her strong point. She used a man 35 years older than her, Willie Brown, to sneak into California politics. Another key element to note here was Willie Brown was married when Kamala seduced him. That just goes to show you what kind of person she is. She doesn't care who she hurts to get what she wants. And that's pretty much the Democrat Party motto. But then we have Gavin Newsom, the shady car salesman type that looks more fitting for a mob boss's little bitch than a leader of the state, let alone the entire country. But Gavin has dreams of being the president of the United States, and luckily for us, not all dreams come true, Gavin, because you, sir, are a moron. And to quote Plato, we as the American people, we would suffer from what Plato warned us about. The heaviest penalty for declining to rule is to be ruled by someone inferior to yourself. So let's start with a little honesty here, because that's what we do here at Facts Me. Politics has become less about service and more about performance. We've replaced merit with marketing and integrity with Instagram filters. And that's where Gavin Newsom comes in. The polished, camera-ready, charm-filled politician who talks about progress while his state literally crumbles behind him. But it's not just Gavin. We've seen this before. We saw it with Kamala Harris. The carefully crafted image, the endless promises, the emotional speeches that don't match the results, especially when those emotional speeches don't match any form of sense. Different backgrounds, but the same political blueprint. Both built their reputations not on proven leadership, but on connections, charisma, and media manipulation. But when you dig into Gavin's political rise, one thing stands out. He didn't climb the ladder. He was carried up it. A simple search will tell you his entire political journey was funded and facilitated by elite family connections. The Getty family, for instance, one of the wealthiest in California, were early and enthusiastic backers. They opened doors for him that ordinary Americans could never dream of walking through. Now look, I'm not saying, being born with connections makes you evil. But what matters is what you do once those doors are open. And that's where Gavin's story starts to fall apart. Because when you inherit power without accountability, you begin to believe you're entitled to it. You stop serving the people and just start serving your image. So let's go down the list of Newsom's promises and the results, or the lack thereof. When Gavin ran for governor, he promised 3.5 million new housing units. That's a huge number. That really sounds impressive. The reality, he delivered about 13% of that target. 13% of 3.5 million. Now, if my math is mathing, that is roughly 455,000 housing permits versus the 3.5 million he promised to get elected. That's not a promise kept. That's a promise buried. And while he failed to deliver those homes, the cost of housing actually skyrocketed. From 2019 to 2023, the median home price in California rose nearly 37%. Property taxes followed, up 23% in some cases. So who gets hurt the most? The working class? The middle class? The very people Gavin claims to fight for? And you want to vote for this? This is the same guy who recently is pushing for reparations for black people. Do you think he's doing that because he cares about black people? He doesn't. He cares about their vote. And he's buying their vote. Because let's face facts, it makes total sense to give people money for something they had nothing to do with. And for other people to pay that money for something they had nothing to do with. All right, let's move on. California's homelessness. He promised to clean up the streets. In 2019, California had around 151,000 people experiencing homelessness. By 2023, that number grew to 187,000. That's an increase of over 20%. That's not progress. That's collapse. That's not cleaning anything up, Gavin. That's adding to the problem. And while tents lined the streets, billions in taxpayer dollars were poured into homeless initiatives that produced nothing. So billions of taxpayer dollars went into homeless initiatives. Yet from 2019 to 2023, homelessness in California grew 20%. So what exactly was done with that money, Gavin? Now, this is just awful because California now represents nearly one third of America's entire homeless population. Out of the entire country, California is 1/3 of the homeless population. So when Gavin brags about California's progress, one has to ask, progress for who? And what exactly is that progress? But let's talk about the ever-burning state of California. Let's talk about the environmental responsibility. In January of this past year, 2025, Newsom dismissed claims that his administration cut $100 million from California's fire prevention budget, calling it a ridiculous lie. But later reports proved those cuts actually did happen, Gavin. So when the hills burned and homes were lost, the evidence pointed right back to your budgetary neglect. California just doesn't burn because of drought. It burns because of bad management. And you know, Gavin, these facts aren't looking too good for you, Grinmeister. Especially when you consider the double talk and the policy contradictions. And then, of course, there's Gavin's trademark inconsistency, which is a hallmark of career politicians. In March of 2025, during the debut episode of his own podcast, Gavin said it was deeply unfair for transgender athletes to compete in women's sports. Holy crap, he was all for transgender athletes competing in women's sports to get voted in. Not now. And of course, he was called out for it. And he reversed course, claiming his comments were unplanned. Let me tell you something, Gavin. Let me tell you how the human mind works. Before you speak, you have to think. And when you think, you're thinking about what you're about to say, like I am right now as I'm doing this podcast. So your mouth just doesn't say things without you thinking first. So to call your comments unplanned, my dude, everything that comes out of your mouth is planned by design. That's how the human body works. Now let me ask you guys, how does a sitting governor with decades of political experience say something unplanned on a recorded broadcast? Words matter. Leadership requires conviction, not correction after public backlash. That's so weak. At least stand for what you're claiming to be behind. You'd have more respect that way. But back to old Kamala and Gavin, our white man's Kamala Harris. This is where the comparison between Harris and Newsom becomes crystal clear. Both rose through networks of political elites. They didn't earn anything, they were handed everything. Both built brands around personality instead of policy. Both have repeatedly failed upward, rewarded for appearances, not for results. Their leadership styles are both theatrical, more about the optics than the outcome. And the Democratic Party, for all its talk about diversity and justice, keeps recycling the same kind of leaders. Smooth talkers who can sell a dream but can't manage a reality. And then we have the big one here, guys, the intellectual crisis. I'm going to take a few minutes on this one because I know this part is going to sting. But facts are facts, and we have to face those uncomfortable truths. Hey, my friends, please join me on Facebook at facebook.com/CanYouFaxMe to continue these discussions, gain access to powerful memes, and leave your thoughts and comments. That is facebook.com/CanYouFaxMe. And that's facts, spelled F-A-C-T-S. See you there. California ranks near the bottom in educational outcomes and average intelligence metrics. Do you want to know how bad they rank? Out of 50 states in this beautiful and great country, California is number 49. Number 49 out of 50 as the dumbest state in this country. That's not an insult to individual Californians. It's an indictment of leadership that's failed its people for decades. Poor schools, high dropout rates, failing infrastructure. And yet California is one of the wealthiest states in the nation. Think about that. Who are the easiest people to take advantage of and profit from? The ignorant. So where's that money going? It's certainly not going toward educating the next generation of thinkers, innovators, or problem solvers, because Democrats don't want that. You'd be competition. So they need to keep you dumb. I did an episode a few weeks ago that explained why Gen Z weren't educated, they were programmed. And I urge you to listen to that because every word of that episode is absolutely true. But let's take the Republican comparison when it comes to California. Let's rewind for a second to a different kind of California. But hey, maybe it's just California is a tough state to run. I mean, clearly their educational system isn't the best, sitting at the bottom of the barrel with his state landing at number 49 out of 50 on the IQ charts. So, I get it. And your state holds a third of the entire country's homelessness. So this can't be easy. But let's see what the governor before him did. Who was governor? Okay, yeah, right. It was a Republican governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold brought down the homeless population to 115,738, compared to Newsom's 187,084. Okay, so the former Terminator did better with that. But let's keep looking. Let's give Gavin the benefit of the doubt. The average cost of a home in the state of California during Schwarzenegger's term was $295,300. Gonna say that again. $295,300. During Gavin's ongoing term, the average cost of a home is $877,285. Holy crap, dude. Gavin raised the average cost of a home, $581,985. Okay, let's move on. Maybe we're not seeing it. We're not finding why Gavin's so great. Arnold's property tax was around $3,000. Gavin's, nearly $5,000. So what lesson have we learned here, my friends? That clearly and factually, a Republican governor succeeded more for the people in California than a Democrat governor. Gavin wants to run for president and handle the entire country? Are you kidding me? Same state, same potential, but radically different outcomes. Why? Because leadership matters. Policies matter. Principles matter. Now, one thing Gavin has admitted publicly is his battle with alcohol. He's an alcoholic, and I have a lot of sympathy for that. And I'll say this, that's a human issue. Addiction is real, and acknowledging it takes courage. But what concerns me is the follow-through. He promised to seek professional treatment, a promise like so many others that was never fulfilled. And that's the core of the issue. Whether it's policy or personal responsibility, Gavin's greatest weakness is commitment. He'll make the speech, sign the paper, and pose for the photo, but when it comes to accountability, he's gone, man. He's out. So Gavin Newsom has made it no secret that he dreams of being president of the United States. And if California is the audition tape, America should think twice before giving him the stage. A man who's overseen record homelessness, record housing costs, and educational decline so bad his state is nearly the dumbest in the country. He should not be rewarded the highest office in the land. If leadership is judged by results, Gavin has already failed the exam. As a matter of fact, he didn't even show up for the test. But this isn't just about Gavin. It's about a political culture that rewards image over impact. We, the people, have to stop voting for charisma and start voting for character. Stop listening to slogans and start reading the fine print. That's partly why I'm doing this podcast, Facts Me, to keep the facts out there instead of them remaining buried under memes and disinformation. Stop defending politicians like sports teams and start demanding proof of progress. America's not divided between left and right. It's divided between those who question everything and those who believe whatever they're told. I know which side Facts Me stands on. So, to my friends listening today, look around, see the results. Judge leaders by not what they promised, but what they've delivered. Judge them not based on their personality, whether or not you could share a beer with them. Judge their work ethic. Gavin Newsom might have the smile, the suit, and the sound bites, but he doesn't have the substance. He is in every sense the white man's Kamala Harris, a symbol of style over substance, privilege over perseverance, and illusion over integrity. So the next time you hear him talk about California's future, remember the present, the one filled with broken promises, record poverty, and rising costs. You win some, and you knew some. You've been listening to Facts Me, where we educate, not fabricate. Be cool to one another, live happy, live free, and urge others to have civil conversations, even when it gets uncomfortable. Because truth doesn't fear debate. It thrives on it. God bless you, my friends. I am Stephen Lancaster. I will catch you next time. Hey, my friends, please join me on Facebook at facebook.com/CanYouFaxMe to continue these discussions, gain access to powerful memes, and leave your thoughts and comments. That is facebook.com/CanYouFaxMe.